Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, and that's something I think a lot of people get misconstrued. There's a lot of stuff where you remember that.
Hey everybody, this is Josh with Tag and Tackle. I'm joined today with a very special guest, one of my good fishing buddies and not too distant blood relative, my brother Spencer with Fintuition Guide Services. We are going to chat a little bit about fall fishing here in the Northwest. We're based out of Portland, Oregon, as most of you know. We want to talk about some of the things you can expect. We're going to chat about real high level, entry level beginner stuff. Maybe get into some intermediate topics, but mostly want to be able to help people go into one of the best and busiest fishing seasons around here, fully prepared and knowing what to expect. But first, why don't you introduce yourself to the YouTuberverse and tell these fine folks a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your guide service.
Sure, man. So what's up, guys? Like you said, Spencer, own and operate a guide service here in Oregon called Fintuition. We target basically everything that swims in the waters nearby. I mostly am based out of the Willamette Valley, but we do fish everything from like the Deschutes River to the coastal tributaries. So what's pretty cool about the sport is, even though it is fly fishing that I primarily guide with, is I do have a very heavy background in gear fishing. I personally think that as long as you fish and respect the resource, it's a pretty cool thing to do. And I think we have a lot of similarities between the two sports, fly fishing and conventional tackle. So maybe that's something we can cover today. I'm not sure what you want to go over, but I do think it's not as difficult as people think.
What, fly fishing?
Correct. Fishing's not as hard as people think, but fly fishing's not as hard as people think either.
Between fly and gear, let's just start with that. If we talk about fishing in general, are we going to be able to talk about how to prepare for fall fishing in a way that applies across the board?
100%. And what's neat about both of fly fishing and conventional tackle spinning fishing, whatever you want to call it, we're going to call it spin fishing for the day. Just make it simple. Whether you're doing whichever one you want to do, whichever technique, they both apply heavily hand in hand. So if you come from a spinning background and you want to try fly fishing, a lot of the techniques and presentations, so to speak, are going to translate. But I will say right now, if you're looking to catch fish, you're targeting a new species, you're looking at fishing a new river system or body of water, still water or river, spinning gear, spin fishing is 100% more effective. It's the fastest way to learn. It's the quickest way to catch fish, and it's not fun. It's still really, really fun. So
you heard it here. Tag and tackle. I won't even repeat that, but good for you.
Yeah, no, it's super. It is, you guys. Like, fishing's cool. So, but yeah, I think that when you're getting ready for fall fishing, there's some key variables that you really need to focus on, because what people forget about fall, I think something that people forget about fall is that the rivers are cooling, but they're not necessarily, let's say, stabilized.
Okay.
The temperatures
water
don't stabilize.
Transitioning.
Correct.
Okay. And what does that matter?
Well, think about if you were having a 75-degree day like we are right now, where I'm wearing a hoodie, you might be in a t-shirt, but
I run hot.
3-4 days ago it was 90s?
Yesterday.
So, I mean, when you have that crazy transition, it's not necessarily comfortable, right?
And it's not.
It's not, and those fish feel the same way.
Okay.
The river's their home, so if the waters are not stabilized, those fish have no time to acclimate, and they're going to change and do different things based on water temperature.
So is it just that they're unpredictable in that case?
I would say that most people think they're unpredictable, but when you learn the patterns and you understand what the river's doing during fall, the fish become more, let's say the code is cracked, so to speak.
Okay.
Things become easier.
Got it. All right. So what species are we going to talk about? Let's start with that.
Well, there's a few. I'm down to talk about whatever species they want to know about or whatever species you want to talk about. In my opinion, fall's the best time, as he said earlier, and I have to 100% agree. Fall's amazing not only because the colors, they're changing, everything's changing. It's super cool, it's beautiful out there. But you have Chinook, you have Coho are coming around, You have late season summer steelhead, early season winter steelhead potentially. You have trout fishing, and you have bass, baby.
Don't forget about those gorgeous purple and gold suckers.
Remind me.
The chum.
Okay.
All right, so we have lots we can talk about.
Okay. See,
We got
you
lots
guys,
we
there's
can
too
talk
many fish. There's too many. This is the problem with fall.
Well,
we'll talk about that later.
We actually, I'll mention something now. You know,
yeah.
and everybody knows that I love the bass fishing. We love bass fishing, but particularly
Yes.
I'm super into bass fishing. I don't fish fall bass nearly as much as I should, which is a killer time of year. Those fish are eating like crazy. They're getting fat for the winter. I don't know how much we'll talk about it. I don't fish it as often as I could because there's also turkey, there's grouse, there's deer, there's elk. So a lot of us are going into hunt mode. Fall's just, it's a glorious time.
Yeah.
If you like being outdoors,
especially in the Pacific Northwest, we're spoiled.
we're spoiled. Let's talk about the salmon, steelhead, getting out on the rivers.
Do it.
They've never been out in the fall. They've never done this before. What's it like?
Okay.
What's fall fishing like? Weather, environment, what's the river like? Maybe we'll sprinkle in some safety in there.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Let's jump into it. So, that's very actually, fall and spring are kind of the unpredictable seasons, I'd say. You got to have a raincoat. Layers are your friend. Bring a bigger bag, not a huge bag, but bring a backpack. You want to be able to shed a layer or add a layer.
Cold in the morning,
very
hot by late morning.
Very
sometimes.
much so.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending on how the seasons are acting, whether or not we're getting a lot of rain or we're not getting a lot of rain, the river can fluctuate. So usually it's still pretty low first start of fall because it's coming out of summer and we haven't gotten any rain. But once we start getting that fall rain, the river level can increase. Flows can increase, so safety becomes a big issue. Okay. You're going to need your PFDs, personal flotation devices. You're going to need those. You're going to need your waders, especially if you're going to be near the riverbanks. If you want the best shot of getting close to a fish, waders or a boat are the best way to get that. It's cold and it gets hot, so I'd say layers. And if you're going to float, you want PFDs, and keep an eye on river levels, which are accessible by computers or phones. You just simply type in your river name. So let's use the Clackamas, for example. It's not a secret river. Clackamas River predictions. Boom, Google search, first link, USGS. It's like United States Global Services or something like that for water flows, I think. Don't quote me on it. But anyhow.
Probably geographic.
Something like that. Anyway, you guys, you can check your river flows and do it because they can fluctuate.
Good. Do you need a boat to be successful to do any of this stuff?
Definitely do not need a boat. I did it for a long time without a boat, and it definitely works.
Okay. So if you're just getting into this, check the weather. Make sure you got the proper attire, essentially. And that includes not only layers and a place to stash that stuff as you get hot, cold, rain comes. So you want your rain gear. Also those waders.
I would say waders are the most important thing, to be honest. I think it's a very underrated tool.
Well, let's get into a little detail then. Tell me about wading boots. What about footwear?
So me, personally, I'm going to say it right off the bat, I'm a Corkers guy. So Corkers make some of the best footwear I've ever experienced, but long story short, here in the Pacific Northwest, or anywhere that it's not banned yet, felt bottom soles and studded felt 100% is going to be the best traction you're ever going to get in our rivers. So don't care what company you want to go with, Reddington, Sims, Corkers, Orvis, I do not care. If they're over $150 and they're a reputable brand name and they make a felt bottom and you can stud them, you're good to go. That's really my biggest thing.
Okay, so that's kind of the minimum, like really that's the entry level for a decent pair of boots. You're going to be $150.
I would say for quality boots. If you fish hard, yes. If you're not like a super avid fisher, you know, maybe you do it like 3 times a year or that annual trip to somewhere with family, you could skimp, but 100%.
Well, if somebody hasn't done it before and they're kind of testing the waters, and they don't want to go full whole hog, they're just like, man, maybe we try once or twice. What can they get away with?
You know, there's a cheap pair by Corkers. It's called the Greenback. It's no more than $100 some odd, less than $200. Call it $150, I believe.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend. If that's still too expensive, those stores like Sportsman's Warehouse, Fisherman's, Cabela's, and they make their kind of name brand boot.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is felt bottom, and if you can, just put studs in them.
We should probably also let people know you've been in outdoor retail for some time as well.
Yeah, I've done a lot of sales. Multiple Sportsman stores.
That's
and
only
I
to
work in
say
a fly shop now.
You know your equipment.
I've used a lot of bad stuff, and I used a lot of good stuff.
All right.
And I can tell you, yes, I've tried it all. Felt bottom, studs, don't care the brand name, don't care the cost.
Okay, so we're gonna get out there. We're gonna do some salmon fishing.
Mm-hmm.
We show up to the. How do you pick a river?
First off, I pick the river. Am I targeting a Chinook or a Coho?
Okay. All right, let's do Coho because I know where that's taking us.
Oh, baby. You mean the bass of the salmon world?
Yeah, the one fish that distracts me in the fall from bass.
Okay, so Coho. I would say, depending on the season, if it's an early fall fishery that I'm targeting, coastal tributaries are obviously going to get the first runs. In fact, I'm actually going out next week, which would be August. And I'm actually going out on the 15th to do a dory trip for Coho.
Oh.
My first dory trip targeting Coho, rock bass, and lingcod on the fly. In the estuary. I've targeted mini Coho on the fly.
Maybe we have another video coming up reporting how that went.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I'm excited, you guys. But long story short, if it's early, and I want the first Coho coming in, they're coming from the ocean, baby, so go to the coast. As it gets hot and heavy, let's call it November.
Okay.
Let's call it November. The Sandy River, the Clackamas, everything. If you Google search Portland, Oregon, Coho Run, and it's got a tributary name on it, it's got a Coho in it.
Okay.
Long story short.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So that's some good local.
That's how I would choose my river.
Stuff. All right. So when you first show up to a new river, new to you, what are you looking for? What kind of features? Where do you begin?
Okay, so yeah, we're fishing for Coho. We found the river I want to go to. I just got to the river. What I'm mostly looking for is slow moving current, eddies, even like what might look like a big lake to you in the river is a really good spot. One thing with Coho that I really find helpful when I'm first starting out is they're a very showy species. What I mean by showy is they roll, they fancy, they dancing. They're rolling around, they're jumping out of the water, they're splashing a lot. You can visually see a lot of the fish in the river when you're out there. So that's a pretty good indicator that they're around. As far as water type goes, would be like really slow moving water, almost non-moving water. Back eddies are a big thing. So when you see the river starting to turn back up on itself off to the side of the bank, deep river sections. So if you're looking at the river and you can see a choppy section where it looks maybe 4 feet or less, and then it really slows up and it gets very dark. That really dark section of the river is where I would target most of my time.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's for Coho specifically?
Mostly Coho. It's not an all the time thing, but if I weren't like absolutely positive on what I was doing as my first time going out there, that's where I would start 100%.
Okay.
No matter what time of year, that's kind of where I would start, is target a water type that species really enjoys.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're new to the river, are there ways to learn about where to start, or is it just get out there and start exploring?
Kind of just get out and start exploring, to be honest. I know it sounds really dumb and cheesy and it doesn't sound very helpful, but realistically, like, you're not going to catch them watching videos on them. You're not going to learn how to fish by watching people do it on YouTube. You're not going to learn your river by watching other people fishing in a completely different state from you. The techniques apply, but your rivers are different. So you need to learn generally what to do, and then you need to spend the time on the water mastering those techniques and learning your system.
Okay. And are you looking for different stuff in the river when you're fishing for Chinook?
Similar, but yes, there are some differences.
Okay.
Like, for example, I do find that Chinook tend to hang out in tailouts a little bit more than the average salmon species.
What's a tailout?
When we break down a river, there's the head or the riffle, the most shallow, fast water that breaks into what we call the run or the belly or the gut. It's usually the deepest slower moving section of the river.
Okay.
And then the tail out is the very end where it breaks into the next riffle. Usually has some type of white water rapid or something that ends that section of the run.
Okay.
So head, bucket, tail out.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Mm-hmm. So these are some basic things to look for in any body of water. So we've got our kind of clothes, we've got our safety gear, we've identified some rivers. We have to do a little research there, right? To kind of know
Which is
salmon
easy to
are running.
find. It's easy to find.
It's easy to find. We're checking weather conditions and going out on a day that works for us. We show up to the river. We're like, okay, here are some river features that the river's made up of, and these are the spots within that river that we're looking to target. I guess we're getting to the point now where it's like kind of basic gear.
Yeah, it's almost time to start fishing.
So we're preparing for fall fishing. That's what we're here to talk about, to be prepared, to know what to get into, taking the guise of somebody new. Let's talk about some basic gear. Let's talk about some conventional, some spinning gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
To start with.
So if you've already done any steelheading, a lot of that gear is going to really work well for coho too. They're not a huge species like a Chinook, so to speak.
Okay.
They're also a little bit more grabby and active, so they'll take lures like spinners, twitching jigs, spoons. They're very aggressive species, at times I should say. Let me clarify. They're at times very aggressive, but
caveat: there are no absolutes in fishing.
they gotta be there and they gotta be willing. So
But
you can do
generally,
everything.
Chinook are aggressive, right?
Generally, Chinook and generally coho, and generally fish are aggressive.
All right.
I mean, they're an opportunistic
enough.
creature, right?
Yeah.
Like they have no arms and feet to punch and kick, and they have to eat things or move away. And if they're bigger than it, they're probably just gonna eat it. So
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, but yeah, back to your question there of what would I use for coho and stuff. Coho are more like a steelhead in size and fight.
Okay.
So if you've done steelheading, your gear is going to work. If you don't have anything, a standard 9-foot, 8 to 15 pound spinning rod with a 3000 series reel, 300 series reel, something with 200 yards of backing or braid. 15 pound, 20 pound, 30 pound braid is totally sufficient. It's going to work just fine. Where it differs a little bit in the gear, I'd say, is depending on how ready you want to be for any conditions, you might want a couple rods. So not all rods work great for every technique. There's definitely rods that work the best for certain presentations, right? So if you want to be the most effective out there doing one thing, say spoon fishing, twitching a jig, bobber fishing, there's rods that are definitely more sufficient for that. They're definitely better for that. Make your life a lot easier.
Well, in the last video we did, or our previous one, was kind of about there are ideal setups for ideal techniques, or for certain techniques, I should say, for sure. They're going to give you it's just all around better. You'll probably have a better experience. It feels a little bit better. But that doesn't mean if you can't get into that gear that a rod generally somewhere around there isn't going to work.
No.
Don't let that discourage you. Don't feel like you got to buy a bunch of stuff, right? Like,
No, not at all. I mean, you guys, when I first started fishing, I went to our local store was a Bi-Mart. It's a cheap, easy to get into anything store. They sell everything, right? And I went to the fishing section and I bought, I think it was an Akuma Salilo, however you pronounce that, Salilo. And it was like a $50 spinning rod. Yeah. And then I bought Akuma Kaimar. I sound like an addicted guy right now. I know, this is crazy. But like legitimately, you guys, it's one of the cheapest, good warranties. They make spinning reels, they make bait casting reels, they make all the different rods, and they make every different rod for every species and technique. Like, and they're affordable. They're badass. Yeah. Other than that, if you want to step up though, I gotta say, like, spending money on your rod is very beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Even some, I mean, for the bass guys out there, some longer, maybe a swim bait rod, something like that, kind of the medium heavy, closer to 8 foot, you could probably get away with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, you fish a lot of medium heavy, 8.5.
I do a lot of finesse stuff, so generally they're even shorter than that. My swim bait stuff might be closer to 8 foot.
Yeah, I mean, if you were throwing like spinners, spoons, twitching jigs, like you could totally get away with that.
Something with maybe a moderate fast action
100%.
there, would work just fine. Okay, so we talked about what kind of rods you need. So we're out looking for silvers, what kind of bait are you? What are you using? What do you catch them on? What's your terminal?
Yeah, dude. So there's a lot of options out there, but me primarily, I know a lot of guys like bait fishing. I'm a gear dude. I've had more success with gear than actual bait, so use it if you want to, but I'm going to strictly talk about hardware.
Okay.
Spoons, spinners, twitching jigs. Those are kind of where my heart lives. Spinners are very aggressive. They're great for early season fish. They flash a lot. The Vibrax spinners by Blue Fox have a lot of noise. They cover a higher water column, so if you're fishing a riffle run or a shallower run, say up to 4 feet in depth, the Vibrax Blue Fox is great. If you're fishing a deeper run, faster water, you need to get down quicker. The R&B bullet body spinners are great. So that's kind of where I would go with spinners.
Okay, and you don't bait fish. You don't use bait. I mean, you certainly do. We've used it before, but
yeah.
you don't like it.
I don't like it. No, I don't like bait.
Is it just messy?
It's messy. It's gross. Honestly, there's so many times where I've fished with.
It works.
It works, but dude, check it out. Like, there's been so many times with, I mean, you can maybe vouch for this, but I've fished with many, many people who use bait all day, and I'm the one who catches the fish, and I'm not using bait at all.
Okay.
Everything I use is artificial.
So if somebody wants to get out there, wants to keep it simple, they're just starting to get into this. They're maybe just getting into salmon for their first time. Don't feel like you got to use float eggs or do any of that stuff. If you can throw a spinner, if you can throw a spoon, you're fishing.
100%. Hell, I'd rather you throw a bobber with a marabou jig underneath it. That's going to catch just as many fish.
Okay.
So, and you're still not using any bait.
All right.
Spoons are great too.
Preference thing, but you don't have to use bait.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. I mean, I have a buddy who is an absolute fish slayer, and he uses bait. He does really well. Really, I think it's more so about learning the fish's behavior and where they're holding in the water.
Okay.
So I think if you can put anything in front of their face or within a foot or two of a fish's face, call it the strike zone. It doesn't matter what it is, they're going to hit it if they're in the mood.
Awesome.
So
okay,
you choose what you want to put at the end of your line, get it near the fish. The fish has to be there and be willing. Doesn't matter what you're using, they will take it if you're close.
Okay.
That's my honest belief.
And if you want to keep it simple, spinners, spoons,
100%.
Twitch and jigs, easy way to go.
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
100%.
So we've talked about salmon. We threw out salmon, I think specifically the Coho and Chinook. We talked a lot about Coho. Because they're coming around. They're right around the corner, right? It's mid-August.
Dude, I'd give them a month and they're probably going to be here.
Buoy Tin's open.
Buoy Tin is open.
The mouth of, and it's been really good. So coming into the greater Portland area rivers, this is right around the corner. So that's why we wanted to start talking. That seems like a good fish to use as an example here. Mm-hmm. But we're scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about with all of these, right?
So many good fisheries and species to chase and fun things to do in fall.
So how do you choose between, because this is about fall fishing, right? Try to keep it high level. Yeah. When you have all these options, how do you choose?
Oh man, that's a good question. I still struggle with that to this day. There's not a good answer. My biggest thing for you as a newer angler to fall, or someone who enjoys chasing all the different species that fall has to offer, is try to give yourself a schedule. So, for example, there are peak seasons for fish runs. Okay. Coho usually peak in like November. So, if you want to really target Coho heavily and have your best chance, fish for them in November. Up until then, maybe just target smallmouth bass. Maybe chase the late summer steelhead around in your systems. That's a pretty cool thing to do. Okay. Spring Chinook, fall Chinook, those might be around too. Trout fishing still a thing if you really want to and you're not quite ready for the other stuff. Mm-hmm. But definitely Coho are a great one. Okay. Just because as a newer angler as well, they're one of the easier species to target, and there's a lot of them around, which gives you a great opportunity to catch them. So I think that's a good one to go for. Okay, great. And like you said, the fish move from the ocean into the big rivers and the tributaries, and so they're at different places at different times. So there is a little bit of like kind of keeping your ear to the ground and kind of looking about where they are, where they're peaking, all that jazz. So
that's where it comes into your schedule. Like, have a list of fish that you want to target and figure out when they're caught. Chum, they are fun, and they have a comparatively short window.
Yeah, it's like October 12th till November 22nd, I want to say. It's like literally a month.
So we scratched the surface on one fish that's right around the corner. That's a really good one. What did you call it? The bass of
bass of the salmon world.
Bass of the salmon
Coho
world, right?
species.
That's our heart and soul. So that's a great one to focus on. But how about you come back and we go into a little more detail on each of these species?
Oh, I'd love to, man. Yeah. This is super fun. So I any fish you guys want to learn about, let him know. Anytime you want me on, let me know. Super fun chat, and there's a lot of fish that the Pacific Northwest has to offer. I think a lot of people don't realize that are around, and
awesome.
How easy it is to do it. So
okay, so if you want to hear something specific from this fountain of knowledge over here, throw in the comments and we will be sure to read that. How do folks get you to just take them out and have you help them catch the fish?
Yeah, guys. So if you're looking to book a fishing trip with me, you can reach me at fintuitionllc.com. You can also reach me at Instagram at fintuition_, or just type in my name anywhere, Spencer Pelham, Pelham, and you can reach me there. I also work at a local fly shop, one of the longest standing fly shops in the Portland area, Northwest Fly Fishing Outfitters. So if you want to do any of that, hit us up. But if you're looking for gear fishing or anything like that, that's still something I have a lot of knowledge and passion for. So don't hesitate to ask me any questions. This guy's also a super wealth of knowledge. He might not say it, but he is. Catches a lot of fish with me. And so let us know what you want to hear.
Awesome. And you have a killer Instagram too.
Thanks.
If you want to see some awesome fish photos.
I post a lot of photos and videos, and we definitely catch. We don't just go fishing. We do some catching too.
All right, find him on Instagram. Like, subscribe, do the whole thing. Y'all really appreciate it. Till next time.
See you guys.